Hi everyone, happy Friday and welcome to Freelancer Live. I am so happy to be here today and so excited to chat with my guest Brielle. I am just going to put her information in the comments if it will go. Don't know why it's not working. That's okay. Come on. Okay, that's all right. Trying to put Brielle's information in, but it's not going, so I'm just going to type it in for you real quick. Okay. Okay. Great, let me just double check that I have her tag correct. All right, awesome. Hi, everyone. All right, I just added my guest's tag or page in the comments just so you can find her easily. I usually have a little note about who my guest is, but it was not going in today. I usually copy and paste it, so that's fine. I hope you're all having a great Friday so far. I am just so excited to chat with Brielle. I have wanted to chat with her for such a long time. She has such a cool and interesting story. I'm most excited that she started a career in dance later in her life, and I cannot wait to hear more about that, how she did that, why she did that, and sort of how you can do that too if you're interested. I mean, she has such a cool story, so I cannot wait to chat with you, Brielle. She just entered the room, so we'll get her on here in a second. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming today. Oh my goodness. All right, in here. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited for our chat today.
So am I. You look fantastic. I can feel your energy through the phone, and I'm so excited.
Thank you. Yours too. Yeah.
Oh,
And I just love this series. I know I've told you that, but I think it's so important to share different stories, and it helps us open up what's possible for ourselves. And sometimes I think that's the hardest step. So
yeah.
Really looking forward to this conversation today.
Oh my gosh, your words mean so much to me. You're like literally making me blush. I'm just so excited to have you and chat with you. And your story is so cool and so interesting. And I messaged you this. I think that you saw it, but I just went down a rabbit hole of watching you dance for the last hour. I had already seen it, but it's so mesmerizing. I was just I couldn't stop watching. So I'm just even more excited than ever to hear more about your story. So I'm just going to start by introducing what this is. If anyone here hasn't seen this before, then I will read your awesome bio, and then we'll get into a chat all about you and your story. So, hi everyone. My name is Erin Coles. I am here in New York City. I run a wedding band called the Metropolitan Players, and this is Freelancer Live. I started this series back in May of 2020 because I wanted to hear all of the stories and journeys of so many of my friends and people in my circles that were going through different things during COVID. Freelancers, gig workers, small business owners, entrepreneurs, just anyone that I could get my hands on to chat with and hear their story. And I'm so excited to invite Brielle Friedman here today to chat with me. We met through the We Are Women Owned community, and her story is so cool and so interesting. And I'm going to let Brielle tell more about herself. But before we do, I'm going to start by reading her bio. So Brielle Friedman is an entrepreneur, brand strategist, clarity coach, and professional dancer. She uses her brand and marketing expertise to help women navigate entrepreneurship, sell in a way that feels good, and build careers that support the lives they want to live. She also uses what she's learned from following her dance dream to help women rediscover their passions and take risks to bring their ideas and desires to life. Brielle has performed at iconic New York City venues like the Dream Hotel and Public Arts, written for Dance Spirit magazine, been in music videos for Latin artists like Wisin and Yandel, and has been seen in publications like Business Insider, Thrive, and Coveteur. So welcome, Brielle.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Erin.
Of course. So why don't you go ahead and get started by just sharing the story of you, whatever you want to share, maybe where you grew up, what you did before, what you're doing now, and sort of how you got into what you're doing.
Yes, of course. So I grew up in Southwest Florida in a town called Naples, and I went to the same school from the time I was in pre-K to 12th grade, which I feel like is just a fun fact that not many people have. And I would say my entrepreneurship journey and my dance journey started in college. And in high school, I don't think anyone I went to high school would really say that I was a dancer or, I wasn't really involved in musical theater or the arts at all. I was much more academically focused and definitely involved in a lot and very like active, but not something someone would say. So when I got to college, actually, I cheered in high school, and that was a big part of my life. And when I went to Brown, that like wasn't really something that was available to me in the same way. Like they just didn't have competitive cheerleading, and it's really big in Florida and just not something that's as big in New England. So I didn't know what I was going to do to stay active and, start to build female friendships, which has always been really important to me. And I just happened to, see a flyer for this dance company and go to an audition. And I really am thankful that I got into it because I always tell people at the time I wasn't good. And so I like to share that because if I can learn to dance, anyone can learn to dance. And I think even above that, my dance journey just showed me how much practice and like continually showing up really, anything is possible. We just have to like put the time in and make space for it, and you grow. Your body grows, your brain grows, like everything grows. So in college, dance became a bigger and bigger part of my life, and I loved performing. I loved being on stage. That was something that was just so much fun for me. And I discovered salsa actually during a study abroad trip. So I went to a salsa club. I was in Guatemala, and that was the first time I had seen salsa dancing in person, but also partner dancing in person. Growing up, I saw like a lot of jazz and ballet and watch So You Think You Can Dance, but the internet and social media definitely didn't exist in the way that it did now. So I just fell in love really immediately. Like that night, we were in a small salsa club. The dancers walked in, they're dancing on the floor. And I remember thinking, that's what I want to do with my life. I want to dance salsa professionally. And I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea how to start that path. I didn't even know how like you would make money as a dancer. And I remember sharing it with my friends, and like pretty much everyone thought it was insane. Because again, like I didn't have any training at that point, and especially for dance or like artistic endeavors in general, I think that's considered really late, right?
Yeah.
So, and I at the same time, I knew that I would need to like pay for training and really financially support myself. So after college, I ended up getting a job in marketing for a travel company. And it was kind of like working for a startup. It was a very new company that was going through a lot of growth. And that was amazing. I got to do everything from brand strategy development and looking at the consumer messaging and then building out all of our digital marketing because we didn't have any of that. And at the same time, I got to travel a lot, which was amazing, especially to have my life at that time. And I was also working remotely. So it was a very remote company even back then. And so it gave me a lot of flexibility. And on the side, I was dancing. I started taking salsa lessons and really spending almost every night and every weekend in the studio. I joined what's called like a training team and then kind of made my way up through the training to like dance in an amateur level and then professional level. And eventually decided to move to New York in 2016 to access everything that is the salsa world there and all the amazing dancers and training. And eventually I decided that it was time to leave this corporate role and I was just ready for something else. And I honestly wasn't sure what I was going to do. I just sort of felt like I needed some time off. I no longer felt excited about the work that I was doing and the path that I was on. And that's always something that was a really big thing for me. And I get a lot of enjoyment from my work. Like I love seeing the impact that I'm having. And that just felt like it was misaligned. So I took some time off. And as soon as I made that decision, even though it was really scary, like I remember cutting back all my expenses and I had been saving up as much money as possible for a few months, but it was still scary, especially in New York in a big city. And as soon as I did, opportunities started to open up, you know? So I found a professional dance partner and we debuted as a professional couple and we started competing. And I was asked to teach at a few studios, which was really exciting, and started to, you know, have students for dance. And I started to pick up different types of dance work too, you know, like performing at events and performing at different venues. And I'd never done any of that. And that was so exciting to me, like something my 16 and 17-year-old self like really wanted to do. And I just had so much fun. And it was kind of through that experience that a few people reached out to me, and I was writing a blog at the time and sharing a lot about what I was doing. And I picked up some freelance work in brand development and marketing, even though I wasn't sure that's what I wanted to do. At one point, I thought I wanted to like write for Well and Good, or like, you know, like do like a complete pivot.
Yeah.
And along that way, I sort of also realized that I had learned so much around marketing and branding in this job, and that I had a lot of expertise and knowledge that I could really share with women to help them take that step, which can be so scary. And for a long time, Erin, I thought, you know, that, and I always tell people this because I think some of our best entrepreneurship ideas and business ideas come from doing the things that come so naturally to us and so easily that we're just like, wait, like someone would pay me to do this? And that's always such a great place to start, because it, you know, like when you're really in flow, and I think this is true in dance and performance, in your work, when you're in that flow, it should be easy and it should be natural. And that's how I started my business. That's how I have a 8-week brand development and marketing strategy program that I work with clients one-on-one. And that's really to like launch your idea, launch your venture into the world, or do a complete rebrand, a complete pivot. And I also have a self-guided online program that's all about tapping into what you really want and learning to make decisions from a place that's really aligned with your values, and listen and lead with your heart, which has been a huge part of my story and something that I feel like I wasn't taught in school, you know. And I think back to 22-year-old me was so scared and really felt like I had it all figured out, and that whatever, like it was too late to start anything new, and it was too late even at 27 to like make a big change. And that's so not what I believe now, and it's so not what my experience has been, and it's so important for me to change that message in the world, and that's what I do now. Yeah,
that's amazing. And I'm like, I want to ask you 1,000 questions. I have 1,000 questions written down for you today. But let's sort of start with where you ended, which is that like you feeling for a moment, at not feeling like this anymore, but at that time that you were too old to do something. I think that a lot of people who have had a creative dream maybe earlier on in their lives and had to take on something more practical as a job to make money or whatever, sort of lose that. And then once they realize that they're not doing exactly what they love, they feel like I could never do that. I'm too old. I would love to hear a little more about some of the things that you did yourself that got you through that roadblock that you came up against thinking that you might be too old, and sort of how you help your clients work through that sort of a thing as well.
Yes. Okay. That's like it's a big question. A big question. So feel free to like jump in and I'll try and make it as quick as possible.
I know it's huge, but whatever you want to share on this topic, like I'm just so interested to hear. I'm sure a lot of people will be interested too.
Yes, of course. It's one of my favorites. So the first thing I would say that was really important to my journey is I did work with a leadership coach a few years ago, back in like 2016, 2017. And this is what I refer to, Erin, as like the stuck period of my life. Like I have a lot of energy. I'm very excited. I feel like you know that. You can feel that even during the slide. And I did not feel that way. I was just like, I felt apathetic and, you know, very like numb, and didn't feel anything really, and didn't feel excited about my career, didn't feel excited about anything in my life. So I was like, okay, time to get a little bit more support, and working with my first coach. And I still, you know, really believe in coaching. That's why I brought it into my own practice and got more training to really coach women, because I think it's so powerful to have someone there as support and to really help you start to identify your own limiting beliefs and the stories you're telling yourself about what you deserve, what you're capable of doing, how the world works, what's available to you, what isn't available to you. And to just, the first step for me was just cultivating awareness around that. I didn't know that I was holding myself back. Like I had no idea. And I had been doing it for so long, like, you know, since I was a kid without realizing it. And then that grows and grows and grows, you know, in high school, in college, in the corporate world. I think there are a lot of stories and structures. It's not like a bad thing, but like in society around us, you know, other people's fears, other people's unlived desires, the fact that they feel like they couldn't go after this thing, you know, sometimes that's in our parental structures, our family structures, sometimes that's at work, sometimes that's with our closest friends. And for me, I just didn't realize how much that was really affecting the decisions I made. And I think my own journey, especially to choose something artistic and to pursue it to the degree that I have, at the age that I did, it really came down to, well, am I going to give myself permission to do this? And that's what a lot of that journey was. So that first initial like 9 months of my life was really transformational. And I sort of saw the external impact of the work I was doing on the inside right away. And as I started to change my own mindset, I started doing the things that I felt like I had to wait to do. So to give a specific example, I've always loved to write. I've always been a writer, and I knew I wanted to write about dance and start a dance blog or like write for different, there are a bunch of outlets, online outlets in the salsa, bachata, like social dance world. And it was like, for years, I'd have all these ideas and I'd write them in a Google Doc and I'd never finish them. You know, I'd get to like 75% of the way. And one night I was just like, okay, you're going to finish this article and you're going to send it in. And it was the first piece that I had written to completion since, you know, college. And it was like such a small thing, but like that's where it started for me, right? It's like I'd been doing this mindset work and then I took an action and the article did really well. I got to come on as like a monthly contributor. It started, and it was something that I was like, oh, I can't write about dance until I've reached a certain level in my technical and physical ability. And I can't start teaching dance until I've done X, Y, and Z. And it was just like all these ideas I had that were like, oh, you can't do this until you've achieved this thing. And finally, I was like, you know what? You can just start. You can start doing it. And I think that grew and grew and grew. And the more I did and the more I've like kind of studied art and worked with, I have an amazing dance coach who's done so much artist development with me. I'm now like taking an acting course, and so much around what I'm learning in there is how to, you know, bring yourself into the role and really show up authentically and all that you are, right? I feel like there's a lot of things where we're like, oh, like I can be good, but not that good. And when I have seen people step into their own light and really own their power, especially as artists and creatives, you know, because it's so hard to do in like a creative, artistic way. And I think a lot of times it can feel like other people are making these decisions, right? Someone else, like the director, the casting person, is going to say like, oh, you're good enough or you're not good enough. But for me, it really started to change when I said, I'm good enough. I'm good enough to walk onto the stage, and I'm good enough in this moment. So hopefully that answers the question. Like it all sort of started building, but it really did start with that awareness piece of, oh, these are the things that I think, these are the stories I've been telling myself, these are the ideas I've picked up. You know, no one in my family has an artistic creative background. My dad is a computer programmer, and like very much the career path was you do on school, you go to college, you get a job. Like my dad's always been really supportive of me, and I've always been like pretty independent, but you know, I think it's more challenging when you don't have the path laid out before you, don't have examples. So I really had to search for those on my own. And I did do that. I did, you know, listen to a lot of podcasts, ask for a lot of informational interviews with like dancers and creatives and people who were following unconventional paths. And then seeing the progress I was making from a physical standpoint. I think that's one thing that's so cool about dance, is that you can see it reflected back to yourself on camera. And yeah, that all really helped me just like keep continuing on this process of like giving myself permission and being like, okay, like if I don't do this thing, I know I'm going to regret it in 10 years, right? I'm going to feel like it wasn't, I'm just not going to feel good about it. And instead, I try to start to enjoy the process and really bring joy to it and like stay in the experience and think about success in terms of, well, if you're enjoying this right now, that is successful. Nothing else matters. And that's what I really try to find for myself every day because I think it is a daily practice, especially again as an artist and creative, as an entrepreneur, and also work with my clients on.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I think that I'm going to touch on this for a little bit because I feel like so many people watching or hearing stories of other people, one of their biggest points where they are like, cool, okay, well, Brielle can do it, but I couldn't do it. Like, I'm sure that you've also probably heard that a lot in your own coaching where that's somebody's sort of block that like, yeah, well, Brielle did it because she quit her job. So like she had all this time. Well, that's not the whole story or the whole truth, but like, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who has that sort of a block that like they can't do it, but somebody else can?
Yeah. I will also say that like those first few months, I picked up like babysitting work. So like even though I feel like that's always really important to share because there's never a transition from like doing your own, like from if you are working in a corporate role, you either have to have like a lot of financial security, I think, or there's a transition. And I feel like that transition, like the side things we do as we're building our full-time thing doesn't get told as much. So I do want to share that. Babysitting was not for me, and I ended up being
Yeah.
like changing that, but that was really helpful. Yeah, so for that block, I think the act of actually starting is so powerful because as soon as you start to make just like a little bit of progress, it's like, oh, okay, I can do that, right? The fear goes away.
Yeah.
So that is my biggest advice. Like, one, recognize that anyone that you are watching, and even like me tell the story, right? This is years and years of doing this work. So don't compare your step one in your journey to someone else's 100 or 110.
Yep.
And then find the smallest, tiniest action you can take, do it, and like celebrate that. And the more you do that, those like little pieces will add up and you'll be like, okay, I can do this. Like it's going to look different for me, but I'm doing it and I deserve to do this. And you know, I'm really good at this.
Yeah. I love that. That's absolutely true. And I think that that's probably the biggest answer for any block that someone has, whether that is they think they're too old or that they can't do it or they don't have the time. It's just do that one thing, take that one step. And like you said, I love the idea of celebrating it. And Carla likes that idea too. She's writing about it. But yes, I love that idea. I think that's so important and something that we can forget to do as we're in the midst of doing 1,000 things is stopping for a moment just to say like, wow, I did it. I actually completed that thing. And once you completed that thing in your own story, I know that you had mentioned other things started to happen and things started just coming your way as you were focusing on this thing that you were really passionate about. I would love to hear a little bit more about sort of that those moments and what that felt like, and also the mix of like the practical hard work that went into like learning how to dance as well as you do, which PS side note, by the way, you have to go to Brielle's page and watch literally all of her videos when this is done because she is so good and she will like take away all of your limiting beliefs of starting something late because like, wow, it's impressive. But anyway, back to the question. I really, really like how was that for you in like focusing on not only the practical, like logistical pieces of learning how to dance, as well as that mindset of truly believing that you deserved to do this thing that you were passionate about?
Yeah. I mean, it was hard. Like it was the biggest growth up, like the biggest way I've grown in life. But the actual like application was, you know, I would dance really late in New York. We'd have rehearsals until like 12 or 1 in the morning. I would get home, I would shower as quickly as possible and like get into bed, and I would wake up and I would often have like, you know, an 8:45 call or like a 9 a.m. call. Thankfully, I didn't have to commute. So that was a huge wonderful thing about having this remote job and running a team remotely. But I was really tired. Yeah, I definitely look back at that period of my life, and at the time, I didn't feel like I was sacrificing anything because I wanted this so badly. Like, I wanted to wake up on a Saturday and like spend the whole day in rehearsal. And I found so much joy in that. I really did. And, you know, I was also then surrounded by other dancers, other artists. And so I developed really strong friendships and was part of this whole community, which I think really helps too. You know, I always say, to answer your question around the blocks, like surround yourself with people who are doing the thing, because you know, you can't be taking advice from people who don't know anything about your dream. You need to be around the people who are doing the thing you want to do. And so you can see and learn and grow from them and feel their energy. That's so important.
Yeah.
But yeah, the actual application was, I did invest hours and hours and so much energy and so much time and so much money into my training. And I did that for years and years. And I was tired. Yeah. And I think I also always came back to, I had a very specific goal, even when I started dancing and I was still in college, and I did initial research around, like, again, Googling in my dorm room, like 2010, internet does not really exist in the same way. Like, I remember finding information around what's called the World Salsa Summit. It's a really, really big championship. And I knew that I wanted to dance in the professional, like, on two division. Mm-hmm. And that was this goal that I had. It was very specific. It was very clear. And the entire time, you know, 6-7 years, that was my goal. And so that would always be something I came back to. And I, you know, there was deeper layers of why I wanted this, but that was so helpful. You know, it was like, I just imagined myself getting to that experience and having that and that feeling, and all the visualization you can do around that, I think, is really helpful. And when it actually happened for me in 2020, yeah, right before this crazy pandemic thing, it was so magical, Erin. Like, it was everything I ever wanted. And I think that can be really powerful too, right? Like, it's hard for us to really invest in the big dream, because, like, what if we don't get there? And I think that has so much to do with blocks too.
Yeah.
But if you really dive in and you're like, okay, this is my dream, and I am going to believe 1,000% this is possible for me, and I'm going to act like this is happening in my future. I don't know when, and it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen probably even in the next 12 months, but it's going to happen. I think that changes everything. And that was such a big part of it for me. And something that really got me through those, like, you know, midnight rehearsals when I was really tired and working full time in corporate marketing. Yeah.
It's a lot. Yeah. And it's so important that you do share how difficult it was, because I think that a lot of people, you know, want an easy way out. They're like, oh, I want this thing and I want it now and I want it fast. I mean, that's also such a millennial thing to do, right? And we're just like used to this instant gratification, but it does take time and it does take work. But the payoff is so fantastic and magical and special. And just like, regardless of, even if you didn't make it to that summit, like, you were doing what you loved, and it was bringing so many opportunities to you. Like, that's so important to remember, is if you focus on the things that you love and you create your life around the things that make you happy and that you're really passionate about, your life will feel so much better in general.
Yes.
And if you make it to that goal, it's extra special.
Yes, no, that's so true. Yeah. And I think we create these goals because we feel like that's going to bring the joy or bring the fulfillment. And, you know, you learn that it's not about that. It's about finding that through the whole experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
And having a goal is also important, right? So, like, when you have that visualization in your brain about where you're going and you've written it down, I mean, that's huge, right? I'm sure you've written it down too, that they're like, you're much more likely to get there when you actually have that goal in place. So I would love to hear about, like, what did you dream about being when you were a kid? Like, what did you imagine your life would look like?
You know, that is such a good question, and something I've thought about a lot, Erin, and I'm sometimes not sure if I even really remember. At one point, I wanted to be a pop singer, for sure. My favorite thing to do when I was like left home alone was just turn on music and like get on the sofa and dance around, like pretend I was having my own show. So always loved performing. I um I think the biggest thing is like I always knew I wanted to have an impact in some way. I'm not sure I knew as a kid what that was going to take. I was involved in a lot of different things. I enjoyed school, but I'm not sure I totally knew. I sometimes think about my 16 or 17-year-old self, and she was sure of herself and just so confident in a way that like my 23 and 24-year-old self lost for a while. And yeah, I like to like go back to that version of myself because she knew her worth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, but I'm not really sure. Pop singer is sort of the one thing that comes to mind when I was a really little kid.
That's cool. I mean, I just wanted to ask because I feel like sometimes whatever we imagined we wanted to be as a kid is still so important to remember for who we are now and what we want to do. And even if it was a pop singer, it's really cool to hear that you're dancing. It's like just another aspect of performance and something that clearly brought you enough joy as a kid that you were like, I love this. Like that you would just, that was your go-to, like in your bedroom. I was just curious to hear. And I also love what you say. I think what's cool about these freelancer lives too is I grow every time so much, like as I'm talking to people, because I hear something I can resonate with so much. And one of those things that you just mentioned is like the confidence of you as a 16, 17-year-old. And like, you were so sure of yourself. I was the same way. And I definitely like lost that confidence along the way and have been slowly rebuilding that back. As I remember being that age and like, I'm so good. Like I used to be into musical theater. I was like, I can do this. I could get the lead role. I could like sing this. I can get into this group. I was so sure that I could do anything I wanted to do. And then there was a point where like I hit the real world and was like, I don't know. These people are better than me. Like maybe I can't do this and maybe I can't. And like it's interesting to sort of remember those moments where you were so confident and sort of try to reconnect to the fact that like, yes, you can do anything you put your mind to, and you can do anything you want, and you can, you know, start salsa dancing when you're in college. Like that's okay. And so cool.
Yeah.
I love that. I totally connected that. So I would love to hear, what are some of the most common things that people come to you with when they're looking to work with you, in terms of like what do they say to you? Like what is someone, because your work is so specific in the fact that like you try to help people live around their passions and do what they love. So like, what do people say to you when they come to you for help?
Yes. So I would say like there are mainly two different people are in two different places when they come. One is just like having lack of clarity, having lack of direction, feeling like they do maybe have this thing that they want to pursue that they've thought about, but it's like very buried. You know, it's something that feels like, oh, like, you know, I don't know if I can do it, but like I actually like kind of have this passion on the side. Or there's a lot of oh, I like too many things, so I like can't choose, or I don't know where to start. And so that's definitely a lot of the work that I do with clients. Sometimes people say, you know, I just like don't know myself. I don't know what I like. I don't know what I dislike. I know that this is not working, right? But I don't know what the right next choice for me is in my career, in my business, in my creative path. And I just don't know where to start. I don't know how to get there. And then on the other side of things, sometimes people come to me and they are really clear, like, okay, I want to build a personal brand. I want to launch this venture. My business has grown pretty organically, but I've never really invested in developing the brand, developing the marketing. And I feel like this is just an area that we could really elevate. And so that's sort of the other side of the work that I do. And I think it's all connected. I think when you are an artist, when you're an entrepreneur, you know, the act of running your business, the act of producing your art is such a lesson, and is for me every day, of like self-love and self-worth and growth. And that's also something that can be so fulfilling, like you were saying, around like finding that joy. And so I love bringing that into the work that I do. But yeah, those are mainly the things, either like no clue, like just something doesn't feel good, or like let's take this to the next level.
And when someone comes to you with that thought of like, I don't know what's wrong, but something's wrong, I don't want you to give away your whole process, of course, but
Yeah.
like, what is sort of the process, anything you can share about starting to peel away those layers and finding what that person really does love to do?
Yes. So I would like, that's my superpower. That's what I
Yeah.
love doing. Um, and just something I like really am so grateful for the clients, the work that I do, and like having found this path and recognize for myself, like I'm really good at that. You know, I'm
Yeah.
really good at seeing, I always say to people, and even in my own story, right? Like dance and marketing and writing and all these different interests can feel very separate, but they're actually all about connection. And there's so many common threads between them. And I'm really good at kind of seeing a mess of things laid out on, like just thrown on the floor, or like a mess of ideas on a piece of paper in a Google Doc, and finding that structure. And so there's a lot of that I bring into my one-to-one client work. Which is hard to like break down. Like, I'm not entirely sure how I do it. I
Yeah.
just like, you know, we do a lot of discovery like in that place, and I really try to get to the core of things, right? So even going back to what you were asking around when someone has a block and someone feels like, oh, well, that's possible for so and so, but it's not possible for me. I think you know, we tend to have a lot of excuses that we feel like are true. But when we really peel them back, it's like, it's not that you feel like you're too old. It's like the fear is generally deeper than that. It's more layered, right? It's more complicated. So it's not that like I'm too old to do this. It's like, what if I take this risk and it doesn't work out? Will that mean I'm a failure? And what does that mean for my self-worth and my self-identity? And like, what are people going to say around me? What are my family? What are my, like those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So we definitely do some of that work. Um, I definitely sort of like structure all of the ideas and find those common threads, and that becomes really powerful starting places for a lot of clients. The other thing I would say is um, I really do believe that we all know deep down what we want, and we all do know what we're really good at. It's kind of like the sun on a cloudy day. It's just that it's been like covered and covered and covered.
Mm.
So I really believe in peeling back those layers, and I do bring in some like embodiment work, some movement, I think, to just release judgment. Like we've got to get rid of that judgment, and we have to start to be honest with ourselves. And those are sort of like kind of the first stages. And then from there, we have to replace these stories. So I do put a lot of emphasis on celebrating wins, owning your strengths, rewriting, rescripting these ideas, and developing, you know, some type of practice around that, so that you really have the tools to do this work on your own, even after our time together has ended. You know, and you can do it for your business, you can do it for your career, you can do it for yourself as a person. I also believe that everything is interwoven. So the more you work on your business, the more you start to notice the same things you're bringing into your interpersonal relationships, like your friendships and your romantic relationships. And, you know, same thing. So I don't really think it matters where you start doing this work, right? Like it's going to show up in all areas of your life. And the more awareness you develop of it, the more you replace those ideas with powerful ideas and believe them, and then actually do the thing. So that's the other thing, is I put a lot of emphasis on the internal and the external. Like you will do the things because, again, I want you to learn and see for yourself, like you are totally capable, right? So how can we take I call them like action steps, but they're basically like tiny steps every week or every 2 weeks that a client will go out into the world and come back. And sometimes there's resistance, not like, you know, everything is a uphill. Like these
Yeah.
journeys are not, right, like they don't go straight up. It's like working through and finding those different layers, but yeah, doing the things and building on top of that. Hopefully that answered the
Yeah.
question.
Oh my gosh, it really does. And it sounds, it's so cool the way you describe it. Just from hearing you talk about it, you can clearly tell that it is your superpower. Like that is the thing that you are able to pull from all of these sort of disjointed things that somebody shares. I mean, not to you, that's the cool thing, is that they're not disjointed. Like, you take it, all these pieces, and you just stick it together in a puzzle and you help them bring it together. But to somebody coming to you, it feels like they really don't have any idea of how all of those things connect and what they really like want to do. So it's really cool that you do that. I love that. And I feel like it's also so, again, like, I love these because they connect to things and people in my life so much, is that so many people, I think, in my life, I grew up in such a creative space with other actors, musicians, and people in stage management, all those things that are like very theatrical, performance, music based. And a lot of them have decided to do careers throughout their journey that are not focused on that creative side of things. And I think around our age, in like early 30s, like late 20s, people start to realize that, like, wait a second, I'm not getting any younger. Like, I don't know if this is what I want to do. And I think a lot of my friends are in this transition of like really trying to focus in on what they love and where their passions really lie. And having trouble sort of navigating that world between like leaving this thing that is very safe and comfortable and moving into something that is new and a little scary, or something that is old and familiar, but that doesn't feel like they can do it now. So it's really, really cool to know that not only that's your superpower, but that even when you were going through that yourself, you needed a little direction to get you there. Like, that's so important to know. How did you choose the person that you worked with to get you to the point where you sort of were able to help focus in your passions a little more?
Yeah. I feel like when you are looking for someone that you want to work with, the connection piece is really important. And I am, this is where I bring the more like intuitive, like artistic side of myself into decision making. You know, like my marketing background is all database,
Yeah.
and my artistic creative background is much more about like feeling into your body and just sitting with yourself and listening to, you know, whatever you want to call it, the voice inside your head, your intuition, your gut. And I had known this coach for a long time, actually. We met through a mutual friend years ago. And at that point, we just like had a really nice conversation. We were at like a birthday party or something and stayed in touch. And we had like an initial discovery kind of call. And at the time I knew like, okay, like, you know, it's not working. You need to do something. And I'm pretty good about that. I'm usually like, okay, like time to get support that you need.
Yeah.
And we just really connected, and I felt like it was going to be a partnership. And I remember my coach asked me, like, from the very beginning, when was the last time you were fully seen and heard? And that was such a powerful moment for me, Erin. I just started laughing because I, at that point, had no idea what that language even meant. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, my brain couldn't even couldn't even understand that. So I think the other thing I'll say is that I didn't quite know what I was jumping into. I was just like, you know, I'm just going to try this, and I can always make a different choice, and it ends up being so powerful. But I really did look for that connection, and I look for that now with my clients too, right? One of the reasons why I do discovery sessions is I'm not the right fit for everyone, and you're not the right, you know, like not everyone is the right fit for me. And I think when you are a small business owner, when you're a freelancer, when you're a consultant, when you're a coach, you're looking for that alignment. Otherwise, things don't work creatively. Like, you're looking for that alignment. Otherwise, things don't work. Yep. And I really try and always go back to that.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Just like following your intuition side of the whole puzzle. That's so true. I can't believe we've already been talking for almost 45 minutes. It goes by so fast. So we'll start to wrap up pretty soon, but I would love for you to share, if anyone is potentially interested in working with you, what are the like services that you offer, and what are some of the ways that people can work with you?
Yeah, of course. So I offer my self-guided program. It's called Lead with Your Heart, and it's specifically designed to be taken over just 3 days. So it's an intensive, and this comes from, you know, my dance background. I grew up doing, or not grew up, but throughout my training, there's a reason why we do intensive language programs and why we do intensive weekends. And I really wanted to create something that would give you a way to go deep in some of these and remove some of these blocks, replace some of these stories, really reconnect with yourself and your own intuition in just, the span of a weekend. So I'm opening up enrollment again in the middle of February, so people are more than welcome to reach out. And then I also offer a 3-month, what I call like creative and clarity coaching. And I work with people one-on-one. And then on the brand and marketing strategy side of things, I do an 8-week brand development and marketing strategy program, which there are 3 different phases. And we go through, like by the end, my goal is to have you set up with all your brand foundational work, to understand your marketing strategy, to have a marketing strategy in place, to know what your offering is, to get your website built, all of those things. And then, of course, it is customized because it's a 1-to-1 program. So based on what people need. I do 90-minute strategy intensives. So again, around branding and marketing, this is just like, you need a deep dive. You're not looking for a longer partnership. You're not looking for continued support, but you are ready to up level in some way. And then I do a strategic marketing partnership. And again, usually that's like a 3 or 4 month commitment in the beginning where I kind of say I'm your like CMO and editor and cheerleader all rolled into one. And it's very much focused on where you are with your venture. And again, I mainly work with artists and entrepreneurs. So either creatively or, more business focused.
Awesome. And okay, so 2 more quick things. The first one, I literally had so many questions for you. I'm like, I wish I could ask them all, but I have to not. So what is either the best piece of business advice you've ever received that you would like to share with others, or just a piece of business advice that you have learned on your own that you would like to share? You could share just 1 or 2 pieces if you'd like.
Okay. My first manager told me to Google everything, and that is the best piece of advice. He said it so nicely too. He was like, you can always ask me questions, but like, I think some of these things you could find on Google. Like, oh, okay.
Okay.
But there are so many resources available, and it's true. Sometimes it's unclear, like what's the right information, right? Sometimes there's like information overload, but at least it's a starting point. So that is something I always share, like if you're not sure, type in some words in Google, like type in some questions and just kind of start doing a little bit of research. That can be really helpful. I think my biggest piece of business advice is like, you don't need anything else to run a successful business that you can't learn or like don't already have access to, right? Like it can feel like a clandestine sort of very mysterious, secretive, like this is only reserved for a select few or like a select group of people. And that's just not true. It feels like that until you actually get into the community. But it's available to you always.
I love that. I love those 2 are like so married too. It's like Google everything and you can do everything using Google as your guide.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I could talk to you forever. But we'll have to close down now. So please share where people can find and follow you. And also I'll make sure to put that in the comments after our call as well for anyone watching it over. So please share.
Yes, of course. I'm on Instagram. I'm at Brielle Friedman. My website is briellefriedman.com. You can email me at hello@briellefriedman.com. I also have a TikTok that I'm pretty active on, same username at Brielle Friedman. And I write a monthly newsletter about charting your own path and pursuing your dreams, which is as personal as I get online, like really goes pretty deep. So you can subscribe to that. And I also share weekly mindset and marketing resources, also via email. So those links are all either in my Instagram or on my website.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today, Brielle. You are so amazing. And I mean, I was going to say fearless, but there's some fear along with what you do, but it seems like you're fearless. You're so, so, so awesome. So accomplished. And it really was a pleasure to chat with you today. Thank you so much to everyone also for joining and listening in on our conversation. If you want to follow Brielle, I will make sure to put all of her information in the replay of this video. So thank you again. Have an awesome weekend, everybody.
You too.
We'll have to talk more. I really want to. Like, I'm excited. Like, have a chat with you.
I'm going to have you on my live too.
Okay, amazing. So,
yeah, but thank you so much. This was wonderful. Thank you everyone for joining. And Erin, again, thank you for creating this space. It's so important. So.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much. Have an awesome weekend, everyone, and I'll see you next week here on Freelancer Live. Bye.
Bye.